Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm doing a video on the full moon in Cancer that is happening in a couple days on Monday, January 17th. 2022 is moving right along, folks. And Monday, January 17th, um, at about 5:30 p.m. here in on the West Coast, we have the exact Purnima, the exact full moon, and it's going to be in Pushya Nakshatra, right at the very, right at the very beginning of Pushya, and the very first degrees, because Pushya Nakshatra starts at 3:30 of Cancer. I'm sorry, 3:20 of Cancer. So this is going to be a full moon that brings out a lot of intense emotions and devotion and nurturing and things like that, which I'm going to get to. I'm also going to talk about the Mercury retrograde, some of the other things here. Venus is retrograde. Mars has just passed over into this sign of Sagittarius from Scorpio. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I do want to also let people know that if you haven't gotten my 2022 forecast yet, you can see there's the scrolling at the bottom. You can get that. Just drop a link in there in the comments if you're watching this live, that you can attend this. You can just click that link, 2022 Vedic Astrology. And if you haven't gotten it yet, because I know there's a lot of new people in the channel and whatnot, you can get the 10 most important shifts for this year, so that you can be ready and be prepared. The first one is happening right now, which is this Mercury retrograde. Practical thinking and progress. Mercury is spending about 6 months in Earth signs this year, because he's going retrograde in these Earth signs. So he's in Capricorn right now, and he's retrograde in Capricorn. But again, because Mercury rules an Earth sign, that's very powerful. So he's very powerful there. So again, I talk about the fact that he's in 6 months this year in Earth signs. So that's very good for practical thinking and progress, having Mercury there. Then I also talk about when Venus turns direct. It's retrograde right now, but it turns direct January 29th. So it can really elevate our connections and our devotion. That's coming in a couple weeks. Then the nodes change signs in the middle of March. You want to know this difference between where the nodes are now in Taurus and Scorpio and when Rahu moves into Aries. Again, this is going to be a huge shift. Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra. I can't wait. It's going to be going over my moon. But so again, a huge shift with this shifting, obsessed with the self and rejecting others. That's what it's going to wind up showing. Rahu in Aries, we're going to be obsessed with our own individuality and kind of rejecting of the compromises. That's going to be a big shift this year. You need to know about this if you haven't gotten it yet, and if you're not aware. Then we have Jupiter moving into Pisces, mystical teachings and connections. And on this free web class, if you haven't gotten it, I talk about that for all 12 signs. So that really talks about how this is going to impact you in the next year, and from April this year to April next year. Then Saturn pokes its head into Aquarius. Then we have eclipses. We have Mars and Rahu getting very close together in the summer. That's very important, that I also talk about from the middle of the summer, July 16th until early August 10th. Then Saturn and Jupiter go retrograde. Then we have the last eclipse in Libra in October. Then Mars retrograde at the end of the year. So these are 10 really important shifts that you must know. And if you haven't gotten this yet, go ahead and register. It's free. You just go here, register now. You either watch an instant replay, which you can watch right now, or you can select an upcoming date in order to watch it. More than an hour long. So check that out. So today, again, we're talking about this full moon in Cancer that's coming up on Monday the 17th. So between now and then, I'm recording this on January 15th on Saturday. We're getting more and more emotional, right, as the moon is leading up to that full moon. And notice how emotionally charged you're feeling, how you're really longing for that connection to the heart. You're really longing for that unity consciousness through the heart. And this is really what the sign of Cancer is. The moon rules Cancer, and it rules the heart, and it rules that longing to merge with our true self, that longing to merge with that oneness, that cosmic oneness that is at the heart of our being. That's what the moon is. It's not just the emotions. The emotions come out and sort of sidetrack us a little bit, but underneath it all, the real point of the sign of Cancer is not just the emotions, but that deep transcendent feeling that is not just emotional, but is more devotional. And that is what is getting activated right now. You're feeling more of a sort of build up to that energy and to that nature, where there's more devotion and more transcendent feeling. So things like with your family, with the connections maybe that you've made and lost, feeling maybe even some emotional regrets and things like that, especially because of these retrograde planets now. It can be pretty heavy time these next few days, especially, and then even a little bit after that whole cycle of this full moon. Because again, the full and new moons are entire cycles. It's not just one day, right? It's part of a larger cycle. And this larger cycle is really about connecting to the heart, and in a transcendent way. And particularly, you might be really looking at some relationship mistakes right now because of Venus going retrograde and also Mercury just turning retrograde. Because Mercury is also where we have an inherent sense of fairness and an inherent sense of, right now with Mercury retrograding Capricorn, we're feeling the impact and the weight and the consequences, because it's in Capricorn, the consequences of our miscommunications, where in some ways Mercury wants to talk to someone, wants to communicate. And maybe some of those people that we aren't speaking to, we feel the heaviness of that. And we're reflecting and introspecting about, is it, did I really perhaps make a mistake there? Did I really communicate, properly? Boy, I really wish I could talk to that person, but now I don't have a way to talk to them because we're in a fight or there's distance. And, do I want to reach out, or I don't know, whatever it might be. Again, that's both from the Mercury retrograde and from the Venus retrograde as well, because Venus has gone retrograde in Sagittarius as well. Both of them are retrograde. And as I said, Mars is changing signs between Scorpio and Sagittarius as well. So that energy is also somewhat in flux. And the sun also just changed signs. So when I did my January forecast, you could find it on my channel, I talked about this period of time when the sun changed signs, Mercury turned retrograde, and Mars changed signs. That this time from about January 14th till about the 17th was going to be a lot of transition. This is a big pivotal shift right now in the month, and with a lot of these energies that are unfolding. And that includes the thing to not also, the thing that we also need to remember is that Saturn is the ruler up here, so it's all this Capricorn energy. And one of the biggest things that I said was going to shift is this shift to the Capricorn, a much heavier Capricorn energy. Because before that, the sun was in Sagittarius. Now, Mars was in Scorpio, but Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. But the sun, especially going into Capricorn, whereas with Saturn and Mercury turning retrograde in Capricorn, this showed a big shift into that area, into that feeling. And again, this full moon being in Cancer, which is opposite. Many times what happens is the full moon, of course, is, the moon shows our feelings about things, but it's reflecting back toward the sun. And again, this full moon in Cancer is wanting and longing for that connection, longing to merge with that family that we're no longer connected to, or because of differences and, again, problems and arguments or whatever, we don't have the connection. So again, moon is where we're longing for the connection, and the sign of Cancer, we're longing for the connection to feel whole. So you may be noticing and looking back on things even over the last several years, again, because we have this Venus retrograde as well, Mercury retrograde, again, which is a big relationship. Venus and Mercury are really the two main relationship type of planets. Again, Mercury, like I said, wants to talk and enjoy ourselves with each other. And Venus, of course, is that also that planet that wants to express, kindness and beauty and happiness with another person. Those things retrograde now. They're not feeling so good, or we're not moving forward with them so easily. And we feel the loss in the moon. We feel it in the moon. So you may be quite sentimental right now about past relationships. And even though there are differences, really feeling the parts that were good, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe you're feeling the parts that were bad. That's going to, in many ways, depend on your nature. Are you more of a angry, irritated, frustrated person? If so, maybe you're just focusing on maybe you're just remembering and feeling all of the difficulties and the dramas right now. Again, notice where your moon is. If your moon is in a place, and if your moon is kind of aggravated and upset, maybe you're feeling that. My moon's in Libra, so I'm not feeling that, even though I don't have a connection like that. I'm remembering back a lot of, I seem to only remember the good times. I wish I could remember I remember the bad ones too, I guess, or the fighting and whatnot, but usually I more remember the good times and think, okay, well, maybe we'll have some good times again, so let's try again. And in those moments where these kinds of corrections, where people are reflecting, or you're missing people, or you're missing someone, I don't tend to remember so much the bad times. I tend to want to feel the good times. And so right now, you may be feeling that. You may be feeling that longing and really feeling that emptiness of a connection that's not there. And not for those reasons that, like, you wanted them before, like, oh, you don't respect me, or you said this thing. Again, those things can be around Mercury and Venus, but the moon doesn't have that. The moon just wants to feel the connection. And again, the moon is that sattvic feeling where you just love the person or love the thing, because you're trying to merge with that love that's your nature, that's more innately, organically your nature, not all of the busyness and politics of having to interact with other people. The moon is much more primal than that. So this full moon, there could be a lot of that. Again, and particularly because this full moon is opposite the sun in Capricorn. Again, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and of course Saturn is there. So even though you might be having those feelings, having that sort of longing here and there, remembering all of those good times, again, this Saturn energy is often like, yeah, but I'm not going to talk to the person again because there's too much pain there. There's too much history and that kind of thing. That describes a couple situations with me, so I gotta just kind of leave it alone, can't initiate contact because person doesn't want it, or the break off was too contentious, and I don't trust what would happen if I did. So I don't. And, but there's still that, that's the kind of practical reality of Capricorn, right? Which that kind of practical thing that says, no, but I can't do that. I don't know what would happen, and I don't trust what the other person is going to say or do, because the last time it was like, okay, leave it alone. So, but you still have the feelings though. You still love the person or feel that. So notice this in your life. And this nakshatra of the full moon is Pushya, which is really that energy of Cancer as well. And realize this, of course, this is it's also one of the clearest examples of the sidereal zodiac. This particular nakshatra can really show you how you can know for sure that the sidereal zodiac, the nakshatras and the rashis, the nakshatras and the zodiac signs are aligned. Because Pushya, sorry, I'm doing this thing here. Because Pushya and Cancer are clearly the same section of the sky. Pushya is literally the breasts. It's like the udders of a cow. It's like the breasts of Cancer, the sign of the mother. So there's no debating this. And for example, if you're using the tropical zodiac now, this is at the end of Cancer. This is where the eclipse happens at about 27 degrees Cancer. But most of Pushya Nakshatra is now in Leo. So again, that just doesn't make sense that Leo is that the first nakshatra in Leo is the breasts. That doesn't make any sense. Of course it's Cancer. So again, there's no question that that's what was intended, and it was also written in every text. But this is this is one of the nakshatras, one of the ones that's totally obvious, that the rashis and the nakshatras occupy the same space and are aligned. And this energy of Pushya is the energy I'm speaking of. It's that pure love that is transcendent of circumstance and situation and politics. And in fact, literally the story of Pushya is a story of politics and deceit and cheating, where the deity of Pushya, who is called Brihaspati, his wife, Tara, fell in love with the moon, fell in love with Chandra. As Chandra goes through each month, eventually Chandra, the moon, and Jupiter's wife, not Jupiter, I should say Brihaspati's wife. Brihaspati is another name for Jupiter, but Brihaspati's wife fell in love with the moon and then ran away with Chandra, is his name. He's the moon god. And then Chandra, the moon, took Brihaspati's wife, went off and had a crazy affair and wouldn't bring her back. And so there was this big scandal that happened. And then eventually Chandra brought Brihaspati's wife back. But of course, now she was pregnant, and she was pregnant with Chandra's child, not Brihaspati's child. Brihaspati is an old man. He's an old priest. And he married, hot young babe, Tara. And she was still, wanting to have some fun and go out to the clubs and go out dancing. And Brihaspati was the old priest. But Chandra, he's like the swinger, Mr. Excitement there. Chandra, the moon, going all over the place. So anyway, he brings her back, and she's pregnant with a child, and she has the child. The child was Buddha, or Mercury was the child. But Brihaspati didn't resent the child. He didn't, even though it wasn't his child, which is typical in these stories. Typically in these stories, your stepchild, they treat him really badly and stuff like that. But not in this case. This is a real story of this selfless love and this selfless nurturing, that even though Buddha, Mercury, was conceived but like a bastard, he was a bastard child, basically, out of wedlock, of in sin. What are you going to do? You're going to punish the child? You're going to blame the child? You're going to not give the child all of your selfless love and devotion? No. So Brihaspati raised the child just like it was his own and loved the child. So it's really a story even about that section of the sky. And again, you have to understand, the reason I talk about these things and I bring out the quality of the zodiac as well is because this is one organic section of the sky, right? It's really not a debatable thing. You're looking at the sky, you're not looking at two different zodiacs. You're looking at one holistic, integrated sky. That's the reason for saying that. So those who say that you're not supposed to use the sidereal zodiac signs are basically saying that this portion of the sky, this part of it, where this story of Brihaspati and the breasts and all like that, you're supposed to completely discount that relative to the sign. And that now all of that is Leo. And, 1,000 years from now, it's going to be Virgo. And then 1,000 years later, it's going to be Libra. No, this is the sign of Cancer. It's the same portion of sky. It doesn't change, right? So the zodiac signs aren't processing behind it. It's the same integrated sky. Of course, if it wasn't, it would have been mentioned somewhere. They wouldn't have just forgot to mention that. So, of course, this is the reason. And you see it so clearly in this section, of course, because of Pushya Nakshatra, which is literally the breast, and Cancer, the Rashi, which is the sign of motherhood and feeling and devotion. So again, you see this story totally conveys that life lesson, and that it's shown both through the nakshatra and the Rashi, right? But again, the thing about it is that the Rashi, the sign of Cancer, has 3 nakshatras. The first part was another part called Punarvasu, which is also a divine mother energy. And then the last part is Aslesha, which is the part where we transcend and we take that same theme of what you would call motherhood, but then it becomes less about nurturing and suckling a baby and more about a transcendent devotional possibility, which can also even be sort of kind of dangerous, where the heart is expanding beyond just this earth and it's trying to encompass all of existence. So again, it needs to be purified. And this is very important as well. This is again, these are all very important qualities of Cancer, right? As, for example, like Aslesha Nakshatra is not in Leo. No, it's in Cancer, right? So again, but it's that last section of Cancer where that sattvic quality of the sign is really featured, you might say, or really necessary, because Aslesha is a lot of intense emotions. Like this, it's ruled by a serpent, and the serpent, the poison can get in our mind and really make the emotions very toxic. So we need to very much purify in the next nakshatra of Aslesha. We need to purify those qualities of Cancer and have it just be that selfless love. And again, I'm talking about this because these are all qualities of Cancer that we're going through with this full moon. This is that part of Cancer. The last part of Cancer is where we can get so attached to things emotionally, particularly our desires. And this is the thing that really brings that Cancer energy sort of crashing down and makes it somewhat sort of diabolical and pathological a little bit when we're not, when it's not elevated. So we need to elevate the emotions toward higher devotion, toward a higher devotional state. That's what that sattvic quality of Cancer is about. So rather, again, this is the love of like the mother rather than of the lover, right? So rather than it be the romantic kind of love, which is the kind we usually get stuck in, and the kind of love that doesn't feel very good often. It doesn't feel rewarding. It's full because it's full of desire. It's not love, just to say it plainly. That's really not love. And people have a lot of confusion about this, but that's not love. That's passion and emotion and desire. It's very different than what you feel for your child or for your pet or even for your friend, where you don't want anything from them. No, you just want to give to them. That's the sattvic guna. The sattva is the part of us that just wants to give. It doesn't want to get anything, or we're not looking at how much we're receiving. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a different life lesson. A different life lesson is the ones that we learned from Mercury and Venus that I talked about earlier. And again, this is the quality of the gunas. That's why the gunas are so important, because that Rajasic guna, the two planets, Mercury and Venus, are the ones where we learn about fairness and sharing and listening to other people and listening to ourselves at the same time. That's what we're learning really in all kinds of relationships with other adults, whether they're romantic relationships or friendships or business relationships, is about equality, mutual respect, those kinds of things. But we tend to mistake that for love. And then we get kind of sideways. We mix up Venus with the moon. And they're not the same. So this full moon energy is really that divine love, which is devotion. And you can tell the difference because you don't want anything with that pure love. Just giving the love is enough. You know, the way my guru Amma says it is, she says, love isn't a feeling. It's not an emotion. It's a flow. It's a flow. That's a good way to put it, right? We think it's some kind of elated experience. You know, where everything we do, we have an emotion involved with it. We're very emotional. And even to say that, you know, you could say your whole life revolves around your emotions and how you feel. How you feel is like 99.9% of your whole life, most of the time. If you have feelings, they're going to take you over. That's going to be who you are in that moment. Whatever that feeling is, you are living that feeling. That is you. I remember this is a teaching that Osho, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, when I read his books, that was something that he would say. And he would say to be 100% in it, in whatever feeling, whatever emotion there is, be it 100%. But he said, he would say things like, you're not angry, you are anger. You become anger. You become sex or desire. You become this thing because you're pure emotion. But because you're also not complete, you kind of, it takes you over, but then you're not doing it all the way. So you don't live it authentically. So either live it authentically or don't live it at all. And that was one of his techniques, was to say, because you're going to continue to be emotional, that when you have an emotion, just be 100% in that emotion in that moment. If you're angry, be 100% angry. Now, that doesn't mean you take it out on people. But that's one of the reasons why he developed those cathartic meditations, like those jumping around and screaming and all that kind of stuff, was to get people to be authentic, at least, because we're not authentic. But we still live almost 100%. Everything is an emotion. Spirituality is a spiritual emotion. So again, your emotions are going to be very lit up now and for the next few weeks, you know, the next week or two at least, as you're going through, as we're finishing this Cancer cycle, this Cancer full moon. And notice how much you are your emotions, and channel them towards something that's devotional. Really notice the difference between that pure love, like you have for your children or your pets or your friends that you really love, where you don't want anything in return from them, and the other relationships where they're totally transactional. And again, I want to be clear, there's no judgment in that. It's not like it's wrong to have those other situations. They are what they are, like I even explained it. And you can still have the feeling. You can still have the longing in your heart, and you'll feel the longing in your heart. And the reason that's again, there's nothing to fix. Sometimes people will say, well, what do you do about that? What do you do about a situation where you're not talking to someone because of this thing? Should I do this? Should I do that? I don't know. I don't know the situation. You don't have to do, understanding these things doesn't mean you have to fix anything. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing to, get in there and fix. It's what it is, and feeling that longing is a connection to your true nature. It's not like it's bad or it's wrong to feel that and to get emotional about it, or maybe even cry and do this. Again, this is all part of the sacred divine process of spiritual growth and development, is to feel those connections and feel that pure love, let's say, that you have for even the people that you're not talking to, or whatever it is, whatever the thing is. Feel it beyond all of that charge. Feel it beyond all of that, because that's actually what you're trying. This is actually what the moon is that underneath it all, there's love there. Because anyone who could affect you like that, no one could affect you like that unless there was love for them. You might not believe that, but it's not hard to realize that. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Love and hate are, especially with most of our situations, they're just different sides of the same coin. It's just passion. It's the same. One side of passion is desire, that we call love or a bond, and the other one is the repulsion. But the flow that's there, just like Alma says, love isn't an emotion, it's a flow. The real flow that's happening between you and that other person is love, because love is the source of all emotion. That's another great Alma-ism, or a great deep dharmic truth, that the source of all emotion is love, and the longing to merge with your nature as love, to be more specific, because that's the source, because you're the source of it. You're the source, but it's not that the source in you is hate. The source isn't hate. The source in you is love, pure love. That's your nature. And so that longing and that pain that you might feel, that pain of separation from someone externally where there was love, is a longing to merge with your true self, which is in essence pure love. Again, we project it all outward, that it was a person or it was a this or that. And, it's just another manifestation of how we're doing all of it. We're doing all of it. I mean, think about it. Think about the things that people have done that hurt you, that you would, where there's maybe where there's some disagreement, or there's some dissent with someone who was, it's always with someone who was a friend before, or someone that you loved and trusted. Again, there was that thing there. Those are the only ones that can wound you. That's the only thing that can wound you or hurt you, is something that you care about, someone who you cared about. Otherwise, someone you don't care about could do the exact same thing. You're like, I don't care about them anyway. It doesn't matter. No, because there's love. There's that flow. That flow was there, and then the flow stopped being the harmonious connection that you wanted with them. But the truth is, the real harmonious connection that you want is your own. You are putting the pressure on them to be something that you don't possess. So you were trying to possess them, trying to possess their approval, their whatever it is that you wanted them to do. And if somehow you could capture that, you could capture a connection to your own essence of beauty and love. And they get very mixed up, especially with Venus and the moon, because beauty and harmonious interaction flowing with another being, like let's say if it's a man to a woman or a woman to a man, you see that beautiful person and they smile and they hug you and you affection, and that's it's about as close to what we feel like we want to, how we can merge. It's about as close as we can get in these bodies. It feels like, okay, I'm getting closer to merging with something in myself. So that really opens us up and makes us vulnerable to when it stops being that. But even that exchange and that beautiful flow, that flow of beauty, the Venus, is a way to, again, try to capture some experience that mirrors our true relationship with our own heart. So this is why that theme of forgiveness is really big, because of all this Saturn energy now. Again, these are larger themes. I've been talking about them for a while just because Saturn has been in Capricorn the whole time, and Saturn is going to bring it down and make us very sensitive. This is the way Saturn works. This Mercury retrograde, when I talked about this, it's really good. Mercury is in Earth signs for 6 months. Well, again, one of them is Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, and what the Earth signs do is they bring us down to the practical, tangible results of what we've done. Again, the first one is Capricorn, and we feel the practical, tangible results of what we've communicated and what we've been focused on. Focus is the sun, and what we've communicated is Mercury. And we're going to notice how certain things have left us alone. Like, again, Saturn and Capricorn are very much about feeling alone and feeling the weight and the pressure of time. By the way, we might be in a relationship. We might be in a marriage surrounded by people all around us, and we still feel alone. It doesn't mean that you're not with someone. You could be with someone and feel even more alone. In fact, that's a very distinct possibility, particularly with Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde and all this Capricorn energy, and on the full moon. Again, sometimes nothing makes you feel more alone than being with other people. And I'm not just saying a romantic partner, but even just being around other people and feeling yourself and calibrating your sense of connection with the crowd or the person, and how authentic it is. See, this is the way Saturn really wears on the sun and also Mercury at this time, because we're really calibrating how authentic our trade-offs are, our compromises, that voice in our head, that story that we're telling ourselves. How authentic is that? And again, the sun is also there in Capricorn. And it's also saying, is this really, this group of people or this thing I'm doing, is this really the way I want my energy to be aligned? Is this really my highest alignment? So these are the things to really think about. And again, in the midst of that, we also have, as you see, Venus retrograde in Sagittarius. Now, this is for the 17th. You see, Mars has also moved in here. This was the other thing I said about the rest of January. After the middle of the month, once we go through this transition from about the 14th to about 17th, 18th, then things have shifted. Now Venus retrograde in Sagittarius has joined Mars. So that's much more combustible, much more intense. as we move through January and as the moon continues to go around, getting ready to form the new moon. As this moon is waning, it's going to be waning with the condition of Venus and Mars getting closer in Sagittarius. So again, this longing that we're feeling with this full moon in Cancer is going to, again, it's already kind of a combustible, volatile energy right now because of Mars moving through the Gandanta through Scorpio and Sagittarius, but could get even more so as Venus and Mars get close in Sagittarius. And then Mercury continues retrograde with the pressure of Saturn there. So be aware of this. And the thing to really do, again, the highest quality of the moon in Cancer is devotion. Not just the emotions, but the devotion. Really, really notice that. Again, notice how different you are with your dog or your cat than you are with your partner or with other even family members or others where you hold them to account for everything. That selfless love is the nature, of Cancer, the devotion. And the highest devotion, really, once we become adults, is to God or to Guru, to teachings. And the practice of devotion is called bhakti, bhakti yoga. Bhakti, which takes the form of chanting the divine names, singing the praises, even doing pujas or things like that. But whoever your beloved deity is, if you love Shiva or you love Ganesha or Lakshmi or Krishna, now is the time to really elevate in rapture to those deities. This is really what that energy is, that emotion that I talked about, that longing to merge, that longing and that feeling of, oh, this thing and this connection I wish I had to this person or whatever. Again, you can go back into that and open all that up, and it's kind of like, But I'll tell you what you can definitely do is you could channel all of that emotion into devotion to God. Sing the names of Krishna. Right? Sing to Shiva. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. Feel Mahadeva come in between your third eye, and everything's okay. Mahadeva Shambho. Hara 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 Shambho. You'd be just fine. See, because you connect with that divine presence, that's really what the heart wants. That's really what you're longing to merge with. Not these people. People are fine. Merge with the self. Merge with God. Merge with that highest self. And in fact, until you get that straight, you're going to have a hard time having good relations with people because you're going to be pressuring them to try to be Mahadeva or Lakshmi or something. That's not who they are. And it's not who you are to them. They disappoint you, you disappoint them as projections of something bigger. We're all just people. If we can come together and be together with each other in life, in a relationship of some sort, friendship or romantically, to be there and help each other evolve and in our practices and enjoy life, what a blessing. And if we can take that as take the good and not reject because they're not perfect or whatever, if we can keep that in moderation and stay connected to the divine and see them as beautiful and important, companions and friends on the path, that's great. And by the way, again, that's what every guru says, that the best relationships are like divine friendships. That's who all the people in our life are supposed to be, like divine friends. And be elevated and devoted to the thing that you're supposed to be devoted to. Devoted to God, devoted to Guru, devoted to teachers and this highest wisdom, not some person who is going to disappoint you and who you're going to disappoint. That's not the that's where we get messed up, right? Oh, I finally just got the comments. Usually there's comments coming, and oh, here we go. Jennifer Karoff said, "Unbelievable, spot on, yay, good." I'm glad to see your comments. There were no comments up until like a second ago. Now I'm seeing some comments, so I'm glad. I'm feeling very motherly in my relationships, even kind of mother Kanye West today as he was having a breakdown. Well, nice. Well, good for you. Sundari's probably in India watching this right now. Amma says, no one loves any more than they love themselves. Yes, Sundari, of course. Yeah, exactly. We're incapable, really, and there's another story about no one loves God as much as they hate their worst enemy. This is there was a great story. There was a great spiritual person. I'll tell the story very quickly. And the man said, I want to know how do I love God? I want to make sure that I can love God as much as is humanly possible. Like, I feel like I love you more than that it's not possible to love you anymore. This is what he said to his guru. The great guru was there, and the person said, I don't think it's possible to love you anymore. I love you so much, blah, blah. And so the guru said to him, so who is the person that you love the most? And the man said, oh, I love my daughter. I would do anything for my daughter. I would do anything for my daughter. Actually, what he did is he asked the man, how do we know how much we love God? That's what he did. He asked the guru, how do I know how much love I have for God? Because I feel like I'm just overflowing with my love for God. And then the guru said, here's how you can tell. He said, who do you love the most? And the man said, my daughter. I do anything for my daughter. I kill for my daughter. I die for my daughter. I do anything for my daughter. And the guru said, who do you hate the most? And the man said, oh, there's this guy down the street. He's drunk. He's obnoxious. He's a nuisance. I wish we would just get rid of him, blah, 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 blah. And the guru said, you love God as much as you hate your worst enemy. That was the answer. Think about it. Because that person you hate the most, God loves them. Loves them. He's a child of God. By the way, this is a great lesson that those of us who get around Amma see. Sundari knows this lesson because we get in these things around Amma. One of the amazing things about being around someone like Amma is we're all in our egos and we're all around each other. And we have these little resentments and these things that go on between us. And then we see this person who we have this thing with, and we see them go up to Amma, and Amma love them, and Amma hug them, and Amma do all this stuff. And we realize, yeah, okay, Amma loves that person as much as me. There's nothing like watching your worst enemy, not like they're my worst enemy, but watching someone who like you're really angry at getting loved up by Amma. You're like, okay, I get it. This is just me and my stupid ego. Burns through all this stuff in real time. So nothing like being in the presence of a being like that to burn up karma so quickly, because again, it all happens internally because you sit there and you're like, oh, that person. And then you see them crying and breaking down and going through all this stuff in front of Amma. I'll tell a story. There was this person that I had that with for several years. And it was weird because this person, quite a bit of this happened with me around Amma for a while. Well, I'm not going to say much about it, but there was this person who really would just, I tried to be nice to her, but she just was, I don't know, she just didn't want it. And I'd say hi and she'd just turn her nose up and ignore me and all like this. So anyway, it was just, I still wasn't upset at her, angry at her, but it was some strange thing. Actually, it was about astrology. I'll just say what it is that when I started to become well known sort of in astrology, there was a lot of people who were also maybe wanted to be astrologers, and I don't want to say jealous, but just some kind of thing where I always would get this, they would always throw this attitude at me, and I didn't know or care really. It didn't bother me. Kind of like what I said earlier, I didn't have anything against them. And I was always, there was this one girl who was like this. I say girl, she was a young lady, about my age. But anyway, so she would always have this like rigid thing toward me. I didn't toward her. I would see her and I would acknowledge her and see her, but she would make sure to like not look at me and never acknowledge that I'm in the room. Sometimes in laughable ways, like we'd have to serve each other food. And I'd see Alma put her in this position of having to try to ignore me like this. It's really kind of comical. While she's having to do seva, like serve food or do some other kind of thing. And she would try to have this armor up and like not be nice to me, even though she has to serve me food or something. So anyway, I was doing seva one time, and I was doing this seva right next to Alma where I'm putting the prasad in Alma's hand. So I'm like right next to Alma. And this lady, it comes up and again, she was bawling. She was a crying mess. She was breaking down. She was anything but the stoic, I'm going to ignore him. Because, you know, when we do that kind of thing, when we're like, you know, it's like this ego, this kind of, I'm tough. It literally, that was the thing. I'm the tough girl. I'm tough. I'm not going to even look at you. You're this thing. And she always will keep up that armor, this kind of armor. And then here it is where I'm now literally, I'm like 2 feet from her while she's just like, she's like sobbing. I mean, and I'm sure she felt, I'm sure it had to be a huge lesson for her. Like, and Alma will do this. Alma puts you in this situation like, okay, you're going to keep ignoring this guy. I'm going to put this guy right in your face when you are the most, you are the least stoic and tough. And so I learned to not do, to try to really not get in these drama games because it's going to blow up in your face. And when it happened with this lady, it was like, that's what you get. That's what you get for, and she carried this on for years. She carried this around for years. It would never. And the thing is we had like 15 friends in common and we'd be hanging around and we'd be talking and I'll be sharing, and she would make sure to never look at me or ever like acknowledge that I'm anything but, and yeah, anyway, so, but this whole thing about, you know, that kind of devotion to the guru, when that's your North Star, the relationships unfold much more easily, you know. And but yeah, it's so funny. I see some of the Alma friends here. I know Jennifer, she's been around Alma too. And you don't get away with that stuff, man. You start like ignoring someone or having some kind of thing, and Alma's gonna like throw you right in some kind of seva with that person where you like have to now get along with them. It's like, watch your mind. This is one of the things that many people don't know what happens when you spend a lot of time around them. They think it's all just, oh, it's going to be fun. It's beautiful and attractive because there's that joy and that love, but it's also like, it's like, okay, she's in your head. You don't like this person, you're going to get right in their face and have to deal with them. So it's such a trip. But anyway, so, you know, this is a very elevated time, a very devotional time. That's one of the, in fact, in many ways, it's one of the best full moons because the moon is the ruler of Cancer, right? It's in its own sign. And so the reason that we have to talk so much about with the emotions and all is because we wind up being so attached to the emotions of the heart rather than the devotion. And instead of the moon and the heart being something that is so beautiful and so uplifting and so devotional, usually, and this is my experience as an astrologer, moon cycles and things that have to do with the moon are often the most painful times, because we're so disconnected from the truth of what the heart is. Because we live so much through the agency of the emotions, we don't even really know what the devotion is. And that's why we have to spend so much time when we talk about things like the moon and the sign of Cancer and whatnot, just really understanding that purity of heart, like when you were a child and when love is innocent and pure, where you don't want anything in return, where you're not trying to get something and possess something or work through something, where there's just that innocent, pure love. Again, we feel it a lot with animals, with other things, that with our friends, where we don't want anything from them. Small children, of course, but just things where there's purity of heart, purity. That's that sattvic quality. So if you're feeling the longing and the pain of separation from relationships that have been broken and whatnot, and it's not possible, for you to reach out or whatever because of the way things are, realize that the real source of all of that connection anyway is the devotion in your heart, and hold that love in their heart regardless. And it's a time to really, feel that love for them as a being, but know that circumstances maybe are what they are. But aside from all of the worldly drama, we need to dial in and really connect with the truth of our consciousness and our heart anyway. All of it is taking place within us. And until that transforms, until that primary relationship is together, all the other ones are just going to be a projection anyway. They're all going to just be some version of longing and possessiveness and frustration and all this stuff. And until we get really clear with that primary relationship to our own heart and that devotional source, until we get that, and we aren't going to have that purity of heart. So that's the one. And again, that I hope you have a blissful Satguru, like a guru like Amma, or a beloved deity. Like, all I have to do is remember, I can just close my eyes and feel that Shiva with the full moon on his head and the Rudra knot sitting in that posture, and I could just like, oh yeah, that, okay. And I'm fine. It's like I can feel that bliss of the heart, that bliss of the soul. Shambho, that's his name, the blissful one. Shankara, Shiva, 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 Shambho. The blissful state of consciousness. Or Krishna, Hari Om. Krishna, or Ganesha, Ganapati, or Kali, any of the great deities, or whatever it is that where you feel devotional, you're devoted to something higher, and it's in you, it's your nature, your consciousness. So connect with that, channel that passion of the emotion into the elevated devotion, because that's transcendent. That's the flow. Love is a flow. It's not an emotion. It's a flow, right? It's a flow. So flow on, folks. Keep the flow going.